My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and I am 24 years of age. I was born in the sodden hills of Somerset, where the wind wails like a grieving widow and the mists creep across the fields as though they carry secrets too dreadful to speak aloud. My childhood was quiet, almost stagnant, until I fled to London, where I imagined I would drink deeply of life's promise. I did not know then that in London, poison is often poured from a silver cup. Her name was Cassandra Hale. She entered my life as if she had been waiting for the curtain to rise. Her beauty was the kind one cannot quite trust, sharp as cut glass, with copper hair that burned in the lamplight and eyes that measured everything they saw. We met as interns at Langford and Hayes Publishing, both fresh from the provinces and aching for success. From the first, she spoke to me as though she had chosen me for a part in her private play. "Eleanor Whitmore," she murmured, reading my badge. "You have the look of a girl who reads by candlelight, long after she should have gone to sleep." Her words warmed me then. Now I see them for what they were, threads in the web she was spinning. I was foolish enough to give her my trust. I shared my dreams with her. I even let her read the manuscript that had been the labor of 3 long years. The tale of a girl swallowed by the moors, and of the man who searched for her until he himself became lost. "It is haunting," Cassandra whispered, her fingers lingering on the pages. "It belongs to the world." I thought she meant it as praise. Weeks later, my work was gone, and in its place the company celebrated her. A manuscript eerily like mine, bearing her name, was hailed as a masterpiece. When I confronted her, her smile was cold as a January dawn. "Ideas," she said softly, "do not belong to anyone. They drift through the air, and some of us are quick enough to catch them." It was then I saw the truth in her eyes. She had taken my work because she could. I left the company, my reputation in tatters. For a time, I tried to bury my bitterness. But grief, I discovered, ferments into something far stronger if left untouched. And so I began to plan. Through certain connections, I learned she had taken a new position at a literary agency. There, she was working on what she promised would be her true triumph, her first entirely original novel. In 6 months, she would place it into the hands of Rupert Crane, the most feared and revered editor in the city. I smiled when I heard. 6 months is an eternity for those who know how to rot something from the inside. Under an assumed name, I began to sow the seeds. I let the skeleton of her plot slip into the world. Fragments posted in obscure corners of the literary underbelly. Whispers grew. Had Cassandra stolen again? Then came the coup de grace, a short story of my own, draped in the same atmosphere, The same themes, published in a well-respected journal 1 month before her meeting. It was close enough to her novel to taint it utterly. I saw her once, on the eve of her downfall, at a gathering of writers. She stood apart, her once burning hair dulled beneath the gaslight. "Still haunting my shadow, Eleanor?" she asked, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I stepped close enough for her to see the satisfaction in my smile. "No, Cassandra. I am merely here to remind you. Ghosts do not forget." The next day, Rupert Crane dismissed her manuscript without ceremony. By the week's end, her name was a whisper people shared like bad weather. And then, like a candle snuffed out, she was gone from the literary world. Now I sit in my dimly lit flat, the rain tapping at my window, reading the letter that announces the publication of my debut novel, The Vanishing Sky. The title she once stole has come home to me at last. And the taste in my mouth is not tea nor triumph. It is the dark, sugared taste of vengeance. The letter from my publisher lies on the desk, its fine parchment glowing faintly in the dim light. My name, Eleanor Whitmore, is printed in ink so black it seems to drink the lamplight. I ought to be content. I have taken back what was mine, and I have crushed the woman who wronged me. And yet, when I close my eyes, I still see Cassandra's face. Not the bright, confident mask she wore when I first met her, but the hollow-eyed shadow she became in the end. I had expected her ruin to be a single, glorious moment. A crash of glass, a final scream. But instead it was a slow, brittle crumbling, like a statue left out in the rain until the features are worn away. 3 weeks have passed since her disappearance from the literary world. At first, the gossip was relentless. "She's fled the city," they whispered. "No one's heard from her." Others claimed she'd been seen wandering the embankment after midnight, her coat buttoned wrong, her eyes wild. I told myself I didn't care, that I had no interest in the woman beyond the justice I had already exacted. But a part of me, small and perhaps unwise, began to wonder. Yesterday, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sharp, elegant strokes like the slash of a blade. "Eleanor, it is a curious thing, to be destroyed by someone you once called friend. But here is what you do not yet understand. When you take something from me, you bind yourself to me. You have not ended this story. You have merely written yourself into it." See. The paper smelled faintly of lavender and smoke. I have not told anyone about the letter. I keep it in the drawer of my desk, beneath the acceptance notice for my novel. At night, I dream of footsteps behind me on rain-slick streets. Sometimes I wake to the sensation that someone has been standing just beyond the bedroom door, listening. It is foolish, I know. London is full of shadows. And I have always had an overactive imagination. But last night, I could have sworn I heard her voice, low and steady, whispering my name from the other side of the wall. Tomorrow, I am meant to meet with my editor to discuss the final proofs. But I find myself hesitating, as though stepping out into the city might place me in her path. And perhaps that is exactly what she wants. For now I will wait. Watch. Because revenge, I am beginning to realize, has a taste that lingers long after the first bite. The letter from Cassandra sits in my desk drawer, but I swear its presence seeps through the wood. Every time I pass the desk, I feel the faintest hum beneath my fingertips, as if the ink itself still lives. It has been 6 days since it arrived. 6 days in which I have not breathed easily. At first, I told myself I would burn it. That would be the sensible thing. Paper turns to ash in seconds, and with it, the hold it has on me. But each time I took it out, the temptation to read it again was too strong. I am ashamed to admit I have read it a dozen times now. The words shift each time I do, not in their letters but in their meaning. The first reading stank of threat. The second, of something nearer to an invitation. By the 12th, I could almost convince myself it was a love letter twisted out of shape. London feels different since that day. I notice things I never did before. The way reflections in shop windows linger a fraction too long. The way footsteps behind me sometimes match my own rhythm, then break away as soon as I turn. 2 nights ago, I dreamt I was standing in the office at Langford and Hayes again. My manuscript lay on my desk, its pages open to the wind. Cassandra stood by the window, her back to me. When she turned, her face was exactly as I remembered. But her eyes were black, pools of ink in which my own reflection was trapped. I woke with my bedsheets twisted around my wrists like restraints. This morning, I found something new. Slipped under my door was a small bundle wrapped in brown paper. No name, no return address. Inside, my old fountain pen. The one I thought I'd lost the day my manuscript vanished. Its nib was clean, but when I turned it toward the light, I saw that the metal was faintly stained. I will not insult you by pretending I did not keep it. In the afternoons, I have taken to watching the street from my window. There is a figure who sometimes stands at the far corner, half in shadow. I cannot see her face beneath the brim of her hat, but I know it is her. She never moves toward me, only watches. Some evenings she disappears as suddenly as she arrived. On others, she remains until night swallows her. My editor has noticed my hesitations, my late arrivals to meetings. Eleanor, he said yesterday, your book is brilliant, but you must focus on the launch. The industry forgets quickly. I nearly laughed. The industry might forget, but Cassandra does not. Last night, I went out. I told myself it was to clear my mind, but I walked straight to the river. The Thames at night is a mirror for the wicked. It shows you only what you most wish to see. I leaned on the railing, breathing in the metallic scent of the water, when a voice came from behind me. Careful, Eleanor. The river takes more than it returns. I spun, but there was no one there. Only the echo of her words tangled with the mist. I am beginning to think that I did not end our story when I ruined her. Perhaps revenge is not a clean blade, but a rusted one, cutting both the hand that wields it and the one it strikes. And perhaps she has been writing her own ending all along. I have decided something. Tomorrow night, I will go to her. I still have friends in publishing who can tell me where she's been hiding. If she means to haunt me, I will step into the haunting willingly. One way or another, this story will end. Or we will both remain in it forever. I did not sleep the night before I went to find her. Instead, I sat at my desk, the letter before me, the pen she had returned resting across it like a black slash. I read her words until my vision blurred, until I could no longer tell if the letters had been written in ink or in blood. By dawn, my mind was made up. It was not difficult to discover where she had been staying. People like Cassandra leave traces even when they vanish. An offhand remark from a contact at the agency, a landlord who spoke too freely after a few coins exchanged hands, and I had it. A boarding house in Limehouse, a place so damp the walls seemed to breathe. I arrived just as the evening fog was rising from the river, curling around the buildings like a living thing. The street was narrow, cobbled, and slick with moisture. The boarding house itself looked as though it might crumble if stared at too hard. The landlady, a pinched woman with eyes like a magpie, hesitated when I asked for Cassandra Hale. She doesn't take visitors, she said, voice thin. She'll take me, I replied. Perhaps it was the way I said it, or perhaps she simply wished to be rid of me. But she led me up a narrow staircase, her footsteps creaking with each step. The room was at the end of the hall. The landlady knocked once, then shuffled away without looking back. There was no answer. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick lavender smoke, and something else beneath, something metallic. The curtains were drawn, but a single oil lamp burned low on the desk, casting shadows that seemed to ripple when I moved. And there she was, Cassandra sat at the desk, her copper hair loose over her shoulders, her back to me. She did not turn when I entered, though I knew she had heard me. "You took your time," she said softly. Her voice was the same as I remembered, smooth as silk drawn over a blade. "You've been following me," I said. "Watching," she corrected. "There's a difference." I stepped further inside, the door closing behind me with a sound far louder than it should have been. "Why? What do you want?" She turned then, and I almost stepped back. Her face was pale, her eyes too bright, as though fevered. And yet there was no weakness in her, only focus, sharp and fixed on me. "To finish it," she said simply. "You think you destroyed me, Eleanor. But you only freed me. The industry, the applause, the petty climbing, that was a cage. You broke it. And now—" She stood, moving toward me with the slow certainty of someone who has already decided the outcome of a conversation. "Now I want you to write with me." For a moment, I thought I had misheard. "Write with you. We were always better together," she said. "Your precision. My vision. Alone we create ghosts. Together, we could create something that lives." I laughed, sharp, incredulous. "You stole from me." Her expression did not change. "And you destroyed me. We are even. But think of it, Eleanor, the kind of story we could make. One no one could ignore. One that belongs to neither of us, and both of us." The strange thing was, a part of me understood her. There had always been a strange pull between us, even when I hated her most. She was the storm, I the stone wall, each shaping the other. But I also knew storms do not share. "And if I say no?" I asked. She smiled faintly, and in that smile I saw both promise and threat. "Then I will keep writing you into my stories until no one remembers which one of us you are." I left her room white-hot agreeing, but the smell of lavender and smoke followed me all the way home. That night, I found a fresh sheet of paper on my desk. It was not mine. At the top, in her sharp handwriting, were 5 words. Chapter 1, We Begin Again. I told myself I would throw the page into the fire. Instead, I placed it on the desk, just above my own manuscript. The 5 words stared at me. Chapter 1, We Begin Again. For 3 nights I did not sleep. By the 4th, I had begun to write. At first, it was a reflex, pencil scratching against paper in the dim hours before dawn. I told myself it was my story, my ending. But her voice lingered in my head, dictating, suggesting, guiding. It was as though Cassandra's presence had seeped into my thoughts, curling around each sentence until I could not tell which words were mine and which were hers. 2 weeks later, I returned to her room in Limehouse. She opened the door before I knocked. "You came back," she said. Not a question but an inevitability. I handed her the pages. She read them in silence, her fingers resting lightly on the margins as if she were touching something alive. "Good," she murmured. "But it needs teeth." She pulled a pen from her desk drawer. The fountain pen she had stolen from me years ago, its nib now gleaming like a surgeon's blade, and began to write alongside me. Days blurred into weeks. We worked in that dim room, the air always scented with lavender and smoke, the curtains always drawn. I would wake on the sofa, find her at the desk already writing, her hair tangled, her eyes alight. Sometimes I thought she had not slept at all. The story we were creating, no summoning, grew darker with each chapter. Characters twisted into reflections of ourselves. A betrayal more poisonous than mine. A revenge more consuming than hers. It was as though the paper itself was feeding on us. One night, as the oil lamp sputtered low, I asked her, "When this is finished, what then?" She looked at me for a long moment, the pen still in her hand. "Then the story will have no need for us anymore." Her tone was almost tender. Almost. We finished the last chapter on a storm-lashed night in March. The rain clawed at the window. The wind howled through the chimney. And in that sound I thought I heard voices, whispering our names. Cassandra placed the final page on the stack and smiled as though she had just completed a prayer. "It's done," she said. "Now it belongs to the world." The next morning, I woke alone. Her chair was empty, her desk cleared. No papers, no pen, no trace she had ever been there, except for the manuscript, bound in black ribbon, sitting in the center of the room. Tucked into the ribbon was a note in her hand. "Eleanor, you understand now. The sweetest revenge is not in taking from someone. It is in making them unable to live without what you gave them." See, the book was published under both our names. The reviews called it a work of singular vision, and a disturbing collaboration between two minds that seem, unnervingly, to be one. I see her sometimes. Not in person. Never that. But in the way a shadow lingers too long in a doorway, or a reflection glances back a heartbeat after I've turned away. And every time I sit down to write, the first sentence comes easily. Chapter 1. We begin again.